Chicago. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of our condo on the 38th floor, the city unfolds like a master architect's blueprint brought to life. Steel and glass giants pierce the skyline, reflecting the vast, moody expanse of Lake Michigan. I'm Ethan. I design buildings, shape spaces. My world is one of precision, structural integrity, foundations built to last. There's a certain comfort in the tangible logic of load-bearing walls and calculated stress points. A stark contrast to the unpredictable fault lines that ran beneath the surface of my own upbringing. My childhood wasn't about slammed doors or overt conflict. It was quieter, more insidious. The slow crumble of trust. The seismic shock of discovering my father's business partner, a man treated like family, had systematically embezzled funds, leading to bankruptcy, lawsuits, and the implosion of the stable world I knew. It wasn't infidelity in the traditional sense, but it was a profound betrayal of partnership, of contracts both written and unspoken. It taught me early about the devastating consequences of broken trust, the vulnerability hidden beneath polished facades, and the desperate need for transparency, for knowing exactly where you stand on solid ground. That experience shaped me, forged a deep-seated need for control, for order, for relationships built on unwavering honesty, which is what I thought I had with Isabel. We met years ago, navigating the demanding worlds of architecture and high-end art galleries in the city. She was magnetic, sharp, sophisticated, the director of a prestigious gallery in River North. Moving effortlessly among artists, collectors, and patrons, our life together felt like a carefully curated success story. The stunning condo overlooking the lake, memberships at the right clubs, appearances at the right galas, a partnership built, I believed, on mutual ambition and absolute transparency. We didn't have secrets. We had plans, shared calendars, joint accounts reviewed meticulously, or so I thought. Lately, though, hairline cracks had begun appearing in the polished surface, a growing distance in her eyes even when she was sitting right beside me, vague answers about her gallery's finances, despite my background making me capable of understanding, an increase in late nights attributed to donor meetings or artist crises. Small things easily explained away individually, but together they formed a pattern, an unsettling tremor beneath the foundations I thought were so secure. My past made me hypervigilant to these signs, the subtle shifts in atmosphere that often precede a collapse. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was my attempt to address the growing distance, to reinforce the structure. Weeks ago, I'd secured a reservation at Elysian, one of Chicago's most acclaimed restaurants, notoriously difficult to book, requiring the kind of foresight I usually reserve for complex structural analyses. Isabel had suggested meeting there directly, citing a last-minute client issue near the restaurant that might make her late, an explanation that seemed plausible at the time. It was meant to be a reconciliation dinner, a gesture, a return to the kind of intimate connection that seemed to be eroding between us, a reminder of the life we'd meticulously built together. I adjusted the knot on my tie, checking my reflection in the darkened window. Outside, the city lights glittered oblivious. I'd arrived early, wanting everything to be perfect. The maitre d' showed me to our table, intimate, secluded, overlooking the city's skyline. I ordered champagne, her favorite, letting it chill in the silver bucket beside the table. But the minutes ticked by. 5 past the reservation time. 10. 15. Isabel was rarely punctual these days, another subtle shift I'd tried to ignore. Each passing minute felt like a small crack widening, the tension coiling tighter in my gut. Was this intentional? Another sign of her detachment? Or just the usual demands of her high-pressure job? The ambiguity was maddening, feeding the anxieties rooted deep in my past. Finally she arrived nearly 20 minutes late. Her entrance, as always, commanded attention. She wore a striking sapphire blue dress, impeccably cut, showcasing her figure. A dress I didn't recognize. New, I registered numbly. Another expense not discussed, another detail outside our shared plan. Sorry, she murmured, sliding into the chair I held out for her, avoiding my eyes. No kiss, not even a brush of her cheek against mine. Just a polite, practiced smile that didn't reach the cool depths of her gaze. Crazy day at the gallery. It's okay, I lied, trying to keep my own expression neutral, trying to quell the rising tide of unease. You look stunning. Life gets complicated, I conceded, but people navigate it together. Or they're supposed to. Her phone resting on the table beside her purse buzzed softly. This time she didn't just glance. She picked it up, a quick, almost furtive movement. A small smile touched her lips as she read whatever message had arrived, a private, intimate smile that wasn't meant for me, the kind I hadn't seen directed my way in months. She quickly tucked the phone back into her designer clutch. "Important?" I asked, unable to keep the slight edge out of my voice. The question hung there, heavy with implication. "Work," she lied smoothly, the word rolling off her tongue with practiced ease. "Always urgent, you know how it is." Before I could challenge the lie, before I could point out that her gallery director duties rarely involved urgent texts requiring secret smiles during reconciliation dinners, a commotion near the restaurant's entrance snagged our attention, heads turning throughout the dining room. It wasn't just noise, it felt orchestrated, designed to draw eyes. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, radiating an aura of expensive tailoring and supreme self-confidence, almost performative confidence, was arguing dismissively with the maitre d'. "Reservation policy?" The man's voice boomed, unnecessarily loud, laced with amused arrogance. "I assure you, it doesn't apply. I'm joining the Callaway table." "Callaway?" "No, he meant our table." The misnaming felt deliberate, a small assertion of dominance even before he arrived. The maitre d' looked flustered, glancing helplessly towards us. I turned to Isabel, expecting shared annoyance, maybe a confused frown. Instead, I saw resignation. A flicker of panic quickly masked, yes, but underneath it, a weary acceptance mixed with something else. Apprehension? As if she knew this confrontation was inevitable, perhaps even provoked by her own complaints to him. The thought sent a chill down my spine, colder than the Chicago wind off the lake. The man brushed past the maitre d' and strode towards our table, moving with the predatory grace of someone used to taking what they wanted, relishing the attention his disruption caused. As he got closer, recognition hit me with the force of a physical blow. Julian Vance, the venture capitalist. Wealthy, ruthless, known for hostile takeovers in business, and apparently in marriages too. We'd met briefly at gallery functions. He'd always had a way of looking through people, assessing their value, their utility. "There you are," Vance said, arriving at our table, addressing Isabel directly, offering me only a cursory, dismissive glance. His tone wasn't just familiar. It was proprietary. "Started without me?" The entire restaurant seemed to fall silent. Dozens of eyes were glued to our table, watching the unfolding drama he had clearly instigated. My mind raced, connecting this display to the betrayals of my past, the calculated moves, the disregard for agreements, the raw power plays disguised as business. Vance wasn't just interrupting dinner. He was executing a hostile takeover of my life, right here, in public. I waited for Isabel to react, to express outrage. Instead, she let out a quiet sigh, a gesture of weary inevitability, and reached over, pulling out the empty chair beside her. That gesture, that simple act of accommodation, was the final confirmation. "Julian," she said, her voice tight but level, "Ethan, let's not make a scene." Let's not make a scene. She was enabling him, prioritizing the avoidance of public embarrassment over the sanctity of our marriage. Over me. The hairline crack shattered. The foundation turned to dust. The late nights, the vague answers, the new clothes, the secret smiles at her phone, her lateness tonight, her suggestion to meet here. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a calculated dismantling I hadn't seen coming. A cold numbness spread through me. Years of architectural training hadn't prepared me for this kind of structural failure. "You two know each other?" I managed to say, my voice distant, detached. "Ethan," Isabel started, her tone cautious, placating, likely repeating lines they'd rehearsed. "Julian and I—" "Don't." I held up a hand, cutting her off. The quiet command carried an authority that seemed to surprise even myself. "Just don't." Vance, completely unfazed, signaled a passing waiter with that arrogant flick of his wrist. "Scotch. Neat," he ordered, before finally turning his full attention to me, a smug, challenging smirk playing on his lips. This wasn't just arrogance, it was a deliberate goad, a display for Isabel, perhaps? Isabel didn't mention I might drop by. "Apparently not," I replied, my voice dangerously calm. The architect in me took over. Observe, analyze, calculate the load-bearing points before the collapse. "Julian, I told you this wasn't the right time," Isabel hissed under her breath, glancing nervously at the surrounding tables. Her anger seemed directed more at his timing, his lack of discretion, than his presence itself. "Why not?" Vance countered, leaning back, thoroughly enjoying the spectacle he'd created. "We're all adults. Besides," he added, his gaze flicking towards me again, the provocation palpable, I was getting tired of being the secret. He wasn't just tired of it. He was asserting his claim, forcing the issue, likely fueled by whatever narrative Isabel had fed him about our failing marriage. The secret. Established. Ongoing. How long? The words were ice shards. Isabel flinched. "Ethan, we can discuss this later." "How long?" I repeated, louder this time, sharper. 6 months, Vance answered for her smoothly, accepting his scotch. He took a theatrical sip, holding my gaze. Give or take. 6 months. Half a year of lies woven into the fabric of our everyday life. Half a year I'd spent trying to diagnose a problem whose root cause was sitting arrogantly across from me. Slowly, deliberately, I placed my linen napkin on the table. I stood up. My movements were fluid, controlled. The betrayal, the public humiliation, the echo of past manipulations, it all coalesced into a single point of cold, focused clarity. "You two enjoy the rest of your evening," I said, my voice steady, carrying just enough weight to cut through the restaurant's hushed anticipation. Vance's smirk finally faltered, perhaps sensing the shift from shock to something far more dangerous. "Because I'm done." "Ethan, don't be dramatic," Isabel protested, real panic finally cutting through her composure as I reached for my wallet. I pulled out 3 crisp $100 bills, placed them deliberately on the table. Enough to cover everything, including the spectacle. This should cover it. And with that, I turned and walked away. Head high, spine straight. I didn't look back. Didn't acknowledge the stares. I walked out of Elysian, out of the meticulously constructed lie of my marriage, and into the cool indifference of the Chicago night. Only when I reached my car did the tremors start. My hands shook. I gripped the steering wheel, white-knuckled. Through the restaurant window I saw them, Isabel and Vance, already talking, leaning towards each other. No chase, no remorse visible from this distance. Just continuation. Something inside he broke then, not loudly but definitively. The part that believed in fixing things and structural integrity above all else gave way. A colder, more methodical part took over. The part that understood foundations built on lies needed not repair but demolition. Driving through the Saturday afternoon streets of Chicago felt like navigating a foreign city. The familiar architecture seemed cold, indifferent. The life I had meticulously built here, the stability I thought I'd secured within these city blocks, had just imploded in the calculated ambiance of a high-end restaurant. The image of Isabel pulling out that chair for Vance had burned behind my eyelids, a symbol of everything broken. The shock wasn't fading. It was crystallizing into something harder, colder. Anger, yes, but also a grim clarity shaped by old wounds. Betrayal wasn't new to me, just the players and the setting. I couldn't go back to the condo. Not yet. Not while the ghost of Isabel's complicity hung in the air. Not while Vance's smug entitlement felt imprinted on the space. There was only one person I could call, one person whose loyalty was absolute, whose mind worked with the same kind of analytical precision I valued, my sister Claire. She picked up on the second ring, her voice sharp and efficient even on a Saturday. "Ethan, everything okay? You sound weird." Claire was a corporate lawyer navigating the cutthroat world of mergers and acquisitions. She didn't do emotional hand-holding, but she excelled at damage control and strategic planning. "Claire," I started, my voice tight. I need to come over. Now." "What happened?" Immediate concern replaced her brisk tone. "Isabel," I said, the name feeling foreign. "It's over, completely. There's someone else. He just crashed our dinner at Elysian." A sharp intake of breath on her end. "Julian Vance?" The question floored me. "How did you know?" "Let's just say Vance has a certain reputation in circles I travel in," she replied grimly. "God, Ethan, I'm so sorry. Where are you?" "Driving, not sure where." "Come here," she ordered. "My place. Now buzz when you get here." The line clicked dead. Classic Claire, direct and decisive. Her condo, sleek and minimalist in a converted loop warehouse, felt like an oasis of order amidst my internal chaos. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and simply stepped aside. No platitudes, no unnecessary questions yet. She poured 2 fingers of expensive bourbon into a heavy crystal tumbler and pressed it into my hand. "Drink," she commanded softly. "Then talk." And I did. Sitting on her tailored sofa, the city lights beginning to prick the twilight sky outside her industrial windows, I recounted everything. The growing distance, the reconciliation dinner, Isabel's lateness, the arrival of Vance, the shocking revelations of a 6-month affair, Isabel pulling out the chair, my cold exit. I related all, the words tumbling out, fueled by bourbon and betrayal. Claire listened intently, her lawyer's mind processing, analyzing. Her expression grew colder, harder, mirroring my own internal shift. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment, swirling the amber liquid in her own glass. 6 months, she finally said, her voice dangerously quiet. "And she let him ambush you at your dinner?" The sheer, unmitigated gall. She took a sharp sip. "Okay, first things first, the prenup. We had both insisted on one before the wedding, a standard precaution given our respective careers and my family history in demanding clarity on contracts. Claire had even reviewed it at the time. Ironclad, she confirmed now, pulling up a digital copy on her tablet. Specific infidelity clause. If proven, she forfeits any claim to non-marital assets and significantly limits claims on marital property acquired during the marriage. Basically, she walks away with what she brought in and her personal earnings, minus anything commingled in ways we can untangle." "Good," I said flatly. This wasn't about punishing Isabel financially as the primary goal, but about enforcing the agreement we made, the contract she had willfully violated. It was about the principle of consequences, something my father's actions had taught me were often lacking. "Julian Vance," Claire continued, tapping thoughtfully on her tablet. "He's slippery, very wealthy, very connected, very litigious. He won't like being dragged into this. His reputation is valuable currency." "He seemed pretty damn comfortable making it public last night," I countered bitterly. "That was ego," Claire corrected. "Posturing, likely believing you wouldn't fight back hard, or that Isabel could smooth it over, facing actual legal discovery, having his name formally linked to adultery in court documents that could potentially leak. That's different. That impacts business." We spent the next hour dissecting the situation. Isabel's dependence on our shared lifestyle, her career potentially vulnerable if scandal hit the gallery world. Vance's likely pressure points, his public image, perhaps other skeletons in his business dealings. The conversation shifted organically from shock to strategy. Claire's corporate instincts took over. "Okay," she said, leaning forward. "Phase 1, containment and leverage. We need irrefutable evidence. Your testimony about the restaurant is strong, especially with witnesses, but Vance could claim he just happened to be there. Isabel could claim duress. We need more." "A private investigator," I agreed. "Exactly," Claire nodded. "Someone discreet, thorough. I know a guy, Harrison, ex-federal, specializes in corporate and marital investigations. He can get background on Vance, document any ongoing contact between him and Isabel, trace financial links if possible." She made a note. "I'll reach out to him first thing Monday." "Second," she continued, "we lock down your finances, everything. Separate accounts, change passwords, notify banks about potential disputes on joint accounts. Freeze any joint credit cards after you've secured your personal funds. We need to protect your assets immediately." "Already started moving funds from the joint accounts this morning," I admitted. Claire gave a rare, approving nod. "Good. Ahead of the game." "Third," she ticked off another point, "your belongings at the condo. You need essentials, clothes, work files, personal documents, but you cannot go back there alone. Isabel could claim anything. Harassment, theft, destruction of property. I'll have my paralegal Jacob accompany you tomorrow. He'll act solely as a witness, document everything you take, ensure there's no confrontation." The thought of going back into that space, now tainted, made my stomach clench, but Claire was right. Protection, strategy, no impulsive moves. "And fourth," Claire concluded, meeting my eyes, "you maintain radio silence with Isabel. No calls, no texts, no emails. Let everything go through lawyers once we formally engage one for the divorce itself. Right now, anything you say can be twisted. Your silence is a weapon. Let her wonder what you know, what you're planning." Hearing it laid out so clearly, so methodically, felt calming. The architect in me responded to the logic, the plan, the structural approach to dismantling the problem. The initial chaos of emotion was being channeled into focused action. "I don't just want a divorce, Claire," I said quietly, the cold resolve settling deep within me. "I want consequences. For both of them. For the sheer arrogance, the disrespect, the violation of trust." The memory of my father's easy betrayals, the years of instability they caused, fueled the determination. This cycle stopped here. Claire held my gaze, understanding passing between us. "I know," she said softly, "and we'll get them. But we do it smartly, methodically. We build our case on solid ground, ensure every support is in place before we apply pressure. We make sure when their structure collapses, it's complete and ours remains standing." She raised her glass. "To solid foundations." I clinked my glass against hers, the bourbon warming a path through the coldness inside. "Solid foundations," I echoed. The fight had just begun. The days following my strategy session with Claire were charged with a tense, focused energy. While outwardly maintaining a semblance of normalcy, focusing on blueprints at the office, fielding routine client calls, internally, the gears of our counteroffensive were grinding into motion. First, the legal formalities. As planned, Claire connected me with Amelia Davenport, a matrimonial lawyer renowned in Chicago for her meticulousness and her refusal to be intimidated by wealth or status. After reviewing my preliminary information and the ironclad prenup, Amelia swiftly drafted the initial divorce petition. It was served to Isabel via a process server at her gallery, a deliberate choice to ensure it was received formally, bypassing any attempts she might make to avoid or delay. The petition was blunt. Dissolution of marriage based on adultery, full enforcement of the prenuptial agreement's forfeiture clause, and a demand for immediate, comprehensive financial disclosure. The first shot had been fired, putting Isabel officially on the defensive. Simultaneously, Mr. Harrison, the PR Claire recommended, began his work. His initial focus wasn't just on documenting ongoing contact between Isabel and Vance, though that surveillance was active, but on digging into Vance's background. Harrison's early reports, delivered through encrypted channels, painted a picture of Julian Vance consistent with Claire's assessment, a history of aggressive business tactics, rumors of leveraged buyouts that bordered on unethical, and whispers of past relationships that ended abruptly and acrimoniously. Crucially, Harrison flagged a complex real estate venture Vance had spearheaded a few years prior, one shrouded in rumors of inflated appraisals and obscured financing structures. It was a potential vulnerability, a crack in Vance's polished facade. While the legal and investigative wheels turned, I continued the meticulous process of disentangling my financial life from Isabel's. Closing joint accounts, transferring assets, updating beneficiaries, changing passwords on every conceivable shared platform. Each action felt like reclaiming a piece of territory, reinforcing my own boundaries against the chaos she had invited in. It was cold, methodical work, driven by the chilling memory of my family's financial ruin years ago. Never again would I allow someone else's choices to compromise my hard-won stability. Then came the next phase of the strategy, the one Claire and I had discussed, applying pressure indirectly, starting with Vance's most valuable asset, his reputation. This wouldn't be a direct attack, nothing easily traceable back to me. It needed subtlety. Using a secure laptop, a burner email address, and public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop miles from my usual haunts, I crafted a carefully worded anonymous tip. It wasn't an accusation, merely a series of pointed questions directed at a well-known, aggressive financial blogger in Chicago who specialized in deep dives into the city's business elite. The questions centered around the specific real estate venture Harrison had flagged, querying the opaque funding sources, the surprisingly high returns promised to early investors, the convenient rezoning that occurred just before groundbreaking. I included just enough verifiable detail, pulled from public records Harrison had sourced, to lend credibility, hinting at a story worth investigating without revealing my hand or my motives. I hit send, then wiped the laptop clean. The effect wasn't immediate, but it was noticeable within a week. The blogger published a piece, not directly mentioning Vance by name initially, but referring to a certain high-profile venture capitalist, and questions surrounding the financing of the controversial River West Tower project. The post was cautiously worded but undeniably pointed, raising eyebrows in the tight-knit Chicago business community. It sparked comments, speculation. Other financial journalists started sniffing around. Claire reported hearing murmurs through her own network, hushed conversations at fundraisers, speculative emails between partners at rival firms. Julian Vance, a man who cultivated an image of untouchable success, suddenly found himself the subject of unwelcome scrutiny. It wasn't a kill shot, not yet, but it was a significant distraction, a potential threat to the reputation he prized so highly. The pressure seemed to trickle down to Isabel. Though I maintained absolute radio silence, Claire relayed information gleaned from procedural communications between Amelia Davenport and Isabel's newly retained high-priced lawyer. Isabel was reportedly becoming increasingly anxious, stressed by the aggressive legal demands for financial disclosure, and likely unnerved by the negative buzz suddenly surrounding her lover. Her lawyer filed motions, attempting to delay discovery, citing emotional distress. Motions Amelia promptly countered. Mr. Harrison's surveillance reports during this period noted a shift in the dynamic between Isabel and Vance. Their discreet meetings continued, but observers noted increased tension in their body language during brief public sightings, entering separate cars after leaving his downtown condo, for example. One operative overheard fragments of a clearly heated argument on the street outside a restaurant where they'd met, though the specific words were indistinct. Vance, I suspected, was not handling the pressure well. A man like him, accustomed to control, wouldn't react favorably to his business dealings being questioned or his lover showing signs of strain. He likely became suspicious, perhaps even paranoid. Did he suspect Isabel? Did he suspect a business rival? Did he suspect me? The anonymous nature of the leak was designed specifically to sow that kind of discord, to make him look inward and outward with distrust. I felt a grim satisfaction watching the pieces move according to plan. It wasn't about overt confrontation. It was about applying steady, relentless pressure, exploiting their weaknesses, his ego, her dependence, the inherent instability of their illicit relationship. They had operated in the shadows, building their affair on leaks and secrets. Now, I was dragging the elements of their lives into an uncomfortable, unwelcome light, letting the pressure expose the cracks in their carefully constructed world. The architect in me appreciated the slow, controlled demolition. The betrayed husband just wanted to see it all come down. The opportunity arrived precisely 3 weeks later, draped in black tie and philanthropic pretense. The annual fundraising gala for the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art. It was one of the city's premier social events, a glittering affair packed with old money, new tech titans, politicians, and, crucially, the influential figures of the art world Isabel and Julian Vance move within. Vance, a major donor and board member, was always a prominent fixture. This year he was expected to give brief remarks. It was the perfect stage. Claire secured tickets for us through her firm's corporate sponsorship. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Ethan?" she asked quietly as we stood in her living room, adjusting my tuxedo studs. "This is aggressive. The blowback could be unpredictable." "He made our private life a public spectacle at Elysian," I reminded her, my voice steady. "He thrives on public image, on control. It's time that image took a hit. A very public hit." My resolve hadn't wavered. The weeks of legal maneuvering and anonymous pressure had only solidified my determination to see this through. We arrived at the museum amidst a flurry of camera flashes and valet attendants. The main hall buzzed with conversation, champagne flutes clinking, expensive jewelry glittering under the spotlights illuminating modern art installations. I maintained a composed, almost detached demeanor, nodding politely to acquaintances, exchanging brief pleasantries. Claire, effortlessly chic beside me, navigated the social currents with practiced ease, occasionally murmuring observations about who was talking to whom. We spotted them across the crowded room near the main staircase, Julian Vance and Isabel holding court. They made a striking couple, Vance exuding wealth and power, Isabel stunning in a dramatic black gown playing the part of the adoring, sophisticated partner. But even from a distance, I could see the subtle tension, the forced brightness of Isabel's smile, the slight rigidity in Vance's posture as he scanned the room, perhaps subconsciously looking for threats. The anonymous blog post and the ongoing legal pressure were clearly taking a toll beneath the polished surface. Our plan didn't involve direct confrontation. It was more insidious, designed to leverage the very environment Vance used to project his power. Claire, through her network, had discreetly fed information, carefully curated tidbits about Vance's questionable business dealings, mixed with more personal, unverifiable rumors about his treatment of past associates and lovers, to City Heat, a controversial but widely read gossip blogger known for crashing high-profile events and posting unfiltered, often inflammatory content live on social media. The blogger, let's call her Cassandra, thrived on exposing the hypocrisy of the city's elite. She needed no payment, only the promise of explosive content. Claire had simply ensured Cassandra received an anonymous tip about potential drama involving Vance at the gala tonight. As dinner service concluded and the initial speeches began, I saw Cassandra slip into the ballroom, phone already held high, scanning the room like a predator seeking prey. She wore a dress just flashy enough to get noticed, but not outlandish enough to be immediately ejected. Claire gave me a subtle nod. Phase 2 was active. Vance eventually made his way to the podium for his brief remarks as a board member, thanking donors, praising the museum's latest acquisitions. He looked confident, back in his element, the master of his universe. As he finished a polite applause and stepped down, Cassandra made her move. She intercepted him near the edge of the stage, her phone clearly recording, possibly live streaming. "Mr. Vance, Cassandra from City Heat." Her voice was bright, amplified slightly. "Just a quick question about the River West Tower project. Sources tell me the financing might not be as secure as your investors believe. Any comment on the rumors of inflated valuations?" Vance froze, blindsided. The polite applause died instantly. A ripple of uncomfortable silence spread through the nearby tables. "I believe you are mistaken," Vance said, his voice tight, trying to maintain composure. "This isn't the time or place." "Oh, but isn't it?" Cassandra pressed, stepping closer, her phone unwavering. "A room full of potential investors? Seems like the perfect time for transparency. Unless," her voice dropped conspiratorially, "there's something to hide. Like maybe how you leverage personal relationships for business gains. I hear you have a knack for acquiring assets, even when they belong to other people." She let her gaze flick pointedly towards Isabel, who stood frozen near their table, her face paling rapidly. The implication was clear, linking the vague business rumors to his personal life, right there in front of everyone. Murmurs erupted. People started pulling out their own phones. "That's libelous!" Vance hissed, his face darkening with rage. "Security! Is it libelous, Mr. Vance?" Cassandra shot back, refusing to back down. "Or is it just inconvenient? Like, say, having to explain to your actual partner," she stressed the word, "why you were booking couples massages under your name with someone else's wife at Vineyard Creek Inn a few months back. I have the receipts." That specific detail, the hotel name, the massage, something only someone involved or investigating would likely know, landed like a bombshell. Isabel let out a small gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. Vance looked utterly stunned, momentarily speechless. Security guards were moving in now, but Cassandra had achieved her goal. The scene was chaotic, cameras flashing, guests whispering excitedly. She didn't resist as security firmly escorted her towards the exit, shouting over her shoulder, "Check City Heat for the full story!" "Receipts don't lie, Julian." Vance stood there momentarily isolated, the center of a swirling vortex of scandal. His carefully constructed image of control and respectability shattered in under 60 seconds. He shot a venomous glare across the room, his eyes locking onto mine for a fraction of a second. He didn't know for sure I was behind it, but he suspected. The look promised retribution. Then his attention snapped back to Isabel, who was staring at him, her expression a mixture of horror, betrayal, and fury. Their hushed argument started immediately, right there amidst the gawking crowd, voices low but body language screaming accusations. It culminated in Isabel turning abruptly, her black gown swirling around her, and storming out of the ballroom, leaving Vance standing alone, humiliated and exposed. From our table, Claire and I watched the denouement with cool detachment. The plan had worked flawlessly. The social media fallout would be instantaneous and brutal. Vance's reputation would be significantly tarnished, professionally and personally. Isabel, implicated by association and her own public reaction, would face her own form of social exile. "Checkmate," Claire murmured, taking a sip of her wine. I nodded slowly, feeling a cold sense of finality rather than triumph. The public humiliation was complete. The foundations of their illicit relationship and Vance's public persona had been structurally compromised beyond repair. It was time to leave them to sift through the rubble. The weeks following the museum gala were defined by the quiet implosion of the lives that Isabel and Julian Vance had built. The scandal, fueled by Cassandra's gleeful live posts on City Heat and corroborated by dozens of eyewitness accounts, ricocheted through Chicago's elite circles. Vance issued strenuous denials through a high-priced PR firm, threatening lawsuits against the blogger, but the damage was done. The video clips. Isabel's furious slap, Vance's stunned humiliation, the influencer's pointed questions were undeniable. His carefully crafted image as an untouchable titan of industry took a significant lasting hit. Rumors circulated about investors getting nervous, deals potentially stalling. While he undoubtedly retained much of his wealth and power, the veneer of respectability had been permanently tarnished. Isabel, predictably, bore the brunt of the social fallout. Implicated publicly as the other woman in a messy, high-profile scandal, her position in the image-conscious art world became untenable. Friends distanced themselves. Invitations dried up. According to Claire, who heard through mutual acquaintances, the gallery's board strongly suggested Isabel take an indefinite leave of absence, a polite corporate term for being forced out. Legally, the path forward became much smoother. Facing social ruin, estranged from Vance, who likely blamed her for the public spectacle, and confronted with the full weight of the prenup and the evidence Amelia Davenport now strategically hinted at possessing, Isabel's fight dissolved. Her lawyer quickly moved from aggressive defense to damage control. Negotiations were brief. The prenup was upheld in its entirety. Isabel walked away with her personal savings, her car, and whatever belongings hadn't been packed in boxes that fateful weekend. The condo, our beautiful space overlooking the lake, was sold. The equity divided strictly according to the prenuptial terms, meaning the vast majority went to me, reflecting my initial investment and the appreciation during our marriage before her documented infidelity began. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I received a forwarded email from Claire. It was from Isabel, sent to Claire's professional address, likely because I had blocked her everywhere else. It wasn't an apology, not really. It was a rambling, bitter missive about how I destroyed her life, how cruel Claire had been, how Vance had used her. It spoke of loneliness, of moving back to her hometown in Michigan to live with her parents, of lost dreams. There was no accountability, only blame deflected outward. I read it once, felt a brief flicker of something akin to pity, then deleted it permanently. Her choices had authored her consequences. Her story was no longer intertwined with mine. As for Vance, he weathered the storm, as powerful men often do. He likely settled any potential issues stemming from the leaked business questions quietly, threw money at PR. And eventually the scandal faded from headlines, becoming just another anecdote whispered at cocktail parties. He didn't face ruin, not in the way others in different stories might have, but his reputation had taken a hit, a chink in his armor, and Claire made sure through subtle legal channels that he understood any further interference in my life or attempts at retribution would result in the full dossier from Mr. Harrison finding its way to very interested parties, including regulatory bodies and his business rivals. He stayed clear.